Today's video is going to be just a little bit longer than usual because we're going to talk about something very serious, and that is suicidality on today's Mental Health Minute with Kim. The topic of suicide is somewhat taboo in our society, American society. It's something that we just don't talk about. We kind of shove it under the rug until we see a headline where a celebrity has maybe died by suicide, and then everybody wants to talk about it, and numbers for national suicide hotlines pop up all over the place in your newsfeed on social media. And those numbers are great, but if somebody is hurting that badly to want to take his or her own life, they probably are not going to reach out to a suicide hotline. But that isn't to say that we shouldn't give those numbers to people or help people call those numbers or plaster them all over our social media. I just want to say that it's not the only thing that we can do. One thing we can do is to start changing the way that we talk about suicide. And one of the worst things that we can do is say that somebody committed suicide, because the word committed has inherently negative connotations. People commit crimes, or if you're religious, you may commit a sin. When we put that label on somebody who has died by suicide, then we're making them inherently bad because we use that term. So we should use terms like died by suicide or took his or her own life. Things like that are small changes that we can make to have a better dialogue about suicide. Another thing we can do is talk to people about suicide. There's a huge myth that if we talk to somebody about suicide, it's going to give them the idea to kill themselves. And that is simply not true. People who die by suicide are feeling so hopeless and in so much pain and may have tried everything they can think of to get out of that pain, and nothing has worked for them. And maybe what they need is somebody to listen to them and really hear them and see them. So if you are afraid that somebody is having some suicidal thoughts, talk to them about it. Another thing I hear people say is that people who contemplate or attempt or complete suicide are selfish. That is a load of shit. People who are in that much pain are not being selfish. They just want the pain to stop. And to them, that is the only option that they see to make that pain stop. I mean, if you think about it, if you broke your arm and wanted to go to the hospital and get it fixed and make the pain stop, and I said, stop being so selfish, you don't need to go to the hospital, I'd sound like a real asshole. And if somebody is in that much pain, the last thing they want to hear is that they're being selfish, because that will contribute to their low self-esteem and sense of worthlessness. And we want to build people up, not tear them down. If you're concerned that someone you know is thinking about suicide, there are some warning signs you can look out for, and I'm going to put those up on the screen and go through them with you quickly. So if the person is talking about wanting to die or kill him or herself, looking for a way to kill him or herself, talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live, talking about feeling trapped or in unbearable pain, talking about being a burden to others, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, acting anxious or agitated or behaving recklessly, sleeping too little or too much, withdrawing or feeling isolated, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, displaying extreme mood swings, and finally talking about and or giving away possessions. With the mood swings, you might see something that might seem contrary to somebody thinking about suicide. If they've been depressed and all of a sudden they're very happy and carefree and it's just a complete 180, that may mean that they have finally decided to go through with the act, and it is a weight off of them because they know the pain's going to end. And likewise, giving away their stuff. They may have decided to go through with it and they don't need their stuff anymore, so they're just going to give them away. But remember, there are atypical signs too. A person might not talk about killing him or herself, and they might not be looking for a way or talking about being a burden. They might clam up. Don't only go by the signs that were listed. just keep in mind, the biggest thing to keep in mind is if you think that somebody might be thinking about suicide, reach out to them. Help them get help. They may not be in a state to get help for themselves. I'm going to put a couple numbers up on the screen here in just a minute, and one is the National Suicide Hotline, and then in Portland, Oregon, we have the Multnomah County Crisis Line, and they can send out a team called Project Respond to assess people and see if they need to go to the hospital. Now, the last thing we want to do is hospitalize anybody against their will, but sometimes if a person is really a danger to him or herself, it might be the best course of action, but we can do that compassionately without making a big scene about it. And finally, if you're in a place where you are feeling hopeless and hurting unbearably, please keep hope. There are things that can be done. There are people like me, therapists who can help you, social workers who can help you, anybody who can help you. You may not even feel like reaching out, but please just hold on to hope. It does get better. I know that sounds like a cliche and corny, but it really, really does. I want everybody to look out for each other and be good to each other and check in with each other. Because just throwing around the National Suicide Hotline and those other resources, like I said, isn't enough. We need to check in on the people who may be the strong ones. We always go to them because they're the tough ones and they're the rock in our friend circle or in our family, but they may be hurting as well and just not showing it. So check in with everybody if you care about them and have any concerns that they might be thinking of suicide. I'll see you next week.